Trust yourself. Trust yourself. Trust yourself. Hey y'all, Niyama Shang here. I have just been hit with just this recognition, a message that has been playing out for me from earlier today, and in that space, what ended up happening is that I recognized that it's time for me to get back to like really just trusting myself again, because well, I'll let you in on this here. I I was sitting in the reason I'm making this video here is because earlier today I got annoyed. Got annoyed because I because of two things happening on platforms that I have been using a lot over the last few years. One of them happening on Zoom, and another one in WhatsApp. So on Zoom, what ended up taking place was that I over the last 24 hours I would get on. Let me just actually just take it to one thing. I got on a call yesterday with someone who was offering to support me as I was looking to really just simplify and change the way that I was looking at my business and my approach, and how I can just bring out more of me in what I'm doing in the most aligned way possible. So we get on to the phone call. I we enter Zoom and she enters Zoom, and it says this meeting will now be recorded or something like that, right? And like the most like stodgy 1980s voice that just like is like super prim, super proper, and saying like, just so you know, this meeting's being recorded. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, there we go. They did it again. Like this thing's going so corporate. And then and feeling a bit upset in that regard, just like of losing something. As that went on, I had about two more conversations later on today, and one of them with the person in the mastermind I'm in, where we spend our time really saying how can we create as much, how can we create as much as we like in the world and make sure that we get that out into the world. And one of the things that dawned on me in the conversation was that now that the meeting is recorded, sound will be coming on in every single Zoom session. It cannot be turned off at this time. In the conversation, I was like, well, this is what's going to happen. At first, people are going to be really apprehensive. They may be looking over their shoulders, be like, does it need to be recorded, so on and so forth. And then eventually, they'll get used to it. Similar to like privacy, like giving your email address or getting your Google account, like giving up all your data in order to get some actions. Like we'll get used to it. And once people get used to it, then what will happen is that people will be more ready and more inclined to be seen and recorded and so on and so forth, and that's just going to become the new status quo. And I got upset because I'm like, I was recording everything. Now everyone else is going to go do it. And then earlier today, I went on to WhatsApp, and I had been using Voxer for a while. I've been using Voxer for at least the last 2 or 3 weeks because another group I'm a part of brought up the idea of exchanging conversations via audio. We're already doing this in our WhatsApp group. And as y'all know me, I like to, I process out loud, I share things in real time, and it doesn't always come off as like the nice, tightest package, right? So I'm like anything, and I'm also amazing at consuming. Like I've been consuming content at anything less than 2.8 speed is like really slow for me. In fact, I wrote a I left a comment, a review on an app today that said, just so you know, two X is the new 1X. You know, it's like this is still quite slow to only offer 2X speed. So what ended up happening is I went onto the platform, sent my friend an audio message, and he responded back and said, hey, just so you know, it looks like WhatsApp's included playback speed options. I was like, I got really excited, went on to the App Store manually, updated it myself, started playing it, and I realized that it only went up to 2X speed. And I was like, what is this? Like, what's happening here? Like on Voxer, I can go up to 4X. On WhatsApp, they give the feature, but they do it in like they only go up to 2X speed. So I did. The app that I left it on was for WhatsApp. It was a 5-star review, just saying like great app, and at the same time, why stop at 2X? And while this was going on, I again felt this feeling of loss. I'm like, the loss that I was feeling here is actually similar to the loss that I felt on Facebook, because Facebook recently introduced playback speeds of faster speeds as well. Still not fast enough for me, but I remember going back and going into getting to the inspect source code on Facebook and manually changing the playback speed to 4x before it was actually like implemented within the actual player. Then I went out after I got tired of doing it manually every time I went to a video. I then went to get a Chrome extension that allowed it to to fast forward videos and so forth. The reason that I come on here is not about like the reason that I come on here is because I realized that I was so upset. I was upset, not that they introduced it, but I was upset at myself because I had stopped doing Facebook Lives like for a while. Like I was doing like 20-minute Facebook Lives, 25-minute Facebook Lives, and just giving you a sense of what my life was, being with you in the moment, and allowing things to unfold as they naturally were unfolding for me. And I got feedback from people saying, "Oh, I'm a completionist. I want to be able to start and stop your message before I get started. And if I don't think I can finish it, I won't start it." I'm like, okay. They're like, "Oh, I want to be able to listen to it on my commute," and they were giving me all these parameters around how they want to listen to my content, which was great. I like feedback is awesome. But to me, I was like, this is a 5 minute. It might be like this is a 5 minute thing. Like, yes, it's 10 minutes in total, but like you can listen to this in somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes. I'm really not sure what you're asking. To me, I'm like, and so I tried to give people what they wanted. It was harder. Like I ended up going up and creating a bunch of like these individual 3 to 5 minute videos that were made, like sharing a message out to people, a daily distinction here or a question here, or just some kind of update that was going on in my life there. But I stopped doing these lives because the energy of coming to just interact and be with you and communicate with you and then just like be in this space with you, that took I wanted to create something that oftentimes took more than 5 minutes to do. I'm glad I got that practice. Like I could have made this a 2 minute video if I wanted to. When I first did this, I didn't have the capability of doing it, so now I've built the muscle and the strength. I have range, but like the main thing was that I changed who I was and what felt natural to me in order to quote unquote meet people where they were. Unfortunately, for me at least, it feels like what I could have been doing with the results that I got from changing to what everyone else was expecting. Well, the thing about it is that like I'm not trying to spend my time being all that polished. I'm not trying to hone in on what the masses want because I've never been a part of the masses. I've never been accepted to that level of just being like everyone else. I've always been someone who fit out, you know? So I don't understand what the masses want. I understand what one individual person wants. I understand how it works for different people who are stepping on the cutting edge, who felt out of place, who have found it safer to not be themselves than to actually be themselves. I get that, but to try and understand what like people on their commute are thinking on the way to go there, like it will happen. You'll see the business include that there, but that will be other people telling me what's necessary in order to meet those parts of the business there. When you find me in the mix, you're gonna really find me pushing the edge and trying to see what lies beyond what most people want. And that's where this message is like really coming from. This message here is coming from this element of like, crap, if I had just kept doing my Facebook Lives as I had, now I would be at a place where that skill would be so honed that when everyone comes in, they're like, I still like your content, and now I get the opportunity to listen to it at 2x speed. Like it would seem polished because it would be so well refined because I'd been working on it for so long. My mind went to like 5 other things where I felt like I was on I saw the trend coming, and I didn't lean in enough, or I stopped myself because it just felt like it was the wrong time for it, or other people said different things. And as I'm gonna list out some of my list here, but I invite you to share in the comments with me, like where have been places in your life where, you knew intuitively what you wanted to do. Maybe you, you knew intuitively what you wanted to do, but you just stopped yourself because it was the wrong time for it, or other people said different things. And as I'm gonna list out some of my list here, but I invite you to share in the comments with me, like where have been places in your life where, you knew intuitively what you wanted to do. Maybe started doing it and got feedback otherwise, or you told someone about it and you got feedback otherwise, only to find like months, years later, like the exact idea that you had was actually really adopted by other people. And had you had just, and you, yeah, I'd be curious about any moment that seems that's your equivalent to something that to what I'm sharing right now. So for me, it takes me back. The first time I can really like remember this is like the first time I denied myself. So I mean, the theme of this for me is like trust yourself because I think that's the lesson I got. But in the absence of trusting myself, I denied myself. I think that's true. We'll see how that evolves. But in the space, the first time I remember like actively denying myself was back in 2010 or 2011. I had just finished reading The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, something that got me started on knowing that it was very possible to create an entire life and lifestyle as an entrepreneur, serving people meaningfully, right? And At the time, I was working as a consultant, and I was traded in my time for money, right? Very direct. However much I build was how much the organization was bringing in, and I wanted this approach. I love this idea of being able to not make it passively, but to make it asynchronously, to not have my time be completely tied to what I get in terms of the money that comes in. And I got to a certain point where they started talking about hiring virtual assistants, and I was like, yo, this virtual assistant thing sounds awesome. And it was all laid out in the book. It was like, this is how to go and do it. This is where to go. And I was like, this sounds great. And I started listening to podcasts about it over as time went on. Later on, I'm like, this feels really good. So I went to my friend and I was like, yo, I'm gonna hire a virtual assistant. And my friend was like, "What are you thinking? I think I was like 24 at the time, right? Like, you're 24 years old. Like, you don't need a virtual assistant. Like, people don't need that. Like, you need to be much older. Like, don't be wasting your time. Don't be wasting your money." And I listened to him. And it's been over a decade since I made that choice. But I'm not one that's filled with regret. But if I did have something on my regret pile, that would be it. That's a story that I feel as a twinge of like, what if I didn't deny myself in that moment and instead I just leaned in and I hired my first virtual assistant. And I did it with like the gall and boldness and audacity of a 24-year-old who thinks he's taking over the world, and actually gave myself that opportunity to try and take over the world, right? Or at least like get someone else to do some things and learn how to actually delegate in a meaningful way at the age of 24. Like, how meaningful, how awesome would that be? Especially now, given the fact that I never really left that path, right? That one really comes up often. I think about in 2020, I stopped meditating. You may remember this, the beginning of 2020, right when lockdowns were starting to happen across the world. I kept showing up here on Facebook and in my conversations with people, more from the standpoint of like, hey, there's an opportunity for us to do something here. Like whatever, like the new normal is going to come, but if the new normal goes back to being the old normal, we have failed. Like, we've missed out on something. Like, we have to do something different. And so I was coming on here with this element of like, look, uncertainty means that there's opportunities for malleability, and that means that we can shape it. The things that have been fixed, the things that have been certain, they no longer are that. And if we're willing to come in and stand strong together and decide together as to where we want to go forward, we can change what the next 100 years looks like. You know, I was coming in with that message, and it just felt like I was just missing people. I was really missing people. People were in a lot of fear, a lot of pain, a lot of sadness, and I was in the creation mode. And honestly, I didn't know what to do with it. I felt, I really questioned my own humanity. To be honest, that is the part, and it seems so extreme, but that is the sole truth. I said, "Am I human?" I asked that question to myself, and I asked that question to several others. I'm like, I just wonder if I'm human, because it feels like the entire world is all experiencing a simultaneous anguish, and I'm missing it. And the reason I felt I was missing it was because I felt that I had actually meditated so much that I was like, I didn't need to be resilient. I was steadfast. I wasn't knocked over, you know. Um, I had like I and so I felt that I like in order for me to really, it's still painful for me right here, because it felt like in order for me to really be of service, to be with people, to not miss people in this time of need, I needed to step back from being so steadfast and instead come down to whatever level everyone else was at. So I stopped meditating, and then I got caught in the collective energy and so forth. And while everyone else was finding different ways to fortify themselves to get to a better place, I was actually on exponential decay. I was like decaying more and more as time went on. So it's a certain point where I feel like we crisscrossed, and then I had to come back after people had surpassed where I was energetically. And I think that that to me comes to another place of like not trusting myself, denying myself, not trusting that like, look, right now it may be too soon for people to want to be talking about how to create from here and how to make things, how to move forward here, or how to like even how to yeah how to move at all, given all the uncertainty around there. But when people are ready for it, I will be here. Um, and instead I changed to try and meet a need, which the intent is still there, but the approach I would say was off. Um, and I felt like that was the time where I just denied myself, and in doing so, denied myself the opportunity to really support people, I'll look back at that as one of those misses that goes out, and there's been a lot of transformation, there's been a lot of growth, but like there was something about it where I missed people on both ends, coming off too powerful at the beginning and then feeling too not powerful enough in the end. Um, where else is this playing out? Well, actually, let me play it in this way. Like, so those are some of the places where I've denied myself. I can see other opportunities where that's come along, and now I think that the gift that's in here is cool. I've done it. I've played a deny myself game, and now I'm seeing. Uh, I'm seeing opportunities to do things differently. Hey, June, I see you out here. Yeah, tell me more about trusting yourself and why it speaks so much to you right now. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. Let's enter in a conversation as much as we can right now. I'm going to continue on for now, but before I get done, I'd like to come back see what else you said and share it with everyone. Um, so now I'm in this space here of like, okay, I've noticed this trend of denying myself. I've noticed that in the past, there's, Zoom's adding recording and announcements, and WhatsApp is adding playback speeds, and I'm just thinking to myself, whoa, here goes opportunities where I was ahead of the curve, and now everyone else is coming to catch up. That's what I feel like when it comes to coming to the mainstream. I'm like, the mainstream will always end up where I'm at, but have I actually prepared the path for them? Because I know what's coming. I know what's coming up. I was doing podcasts, make my own podcast in 2014, 2015. I was on that game, and then in 20, I forget what it was, like Serial was like when there was like this big upturn of new like people listening to podcasts, and then in 2020, tons of people started making their own podcasts. I'm like, I've been doing this for the last 6 years. The thing for me is like I feel that in the trust yourself category. Is it something that I'm choosing to stick with? Is it something that I'm choosing to go all in on, and letting that evolve and grow as it needs to? So right now I'm playing that. The lovely thing about this whole thing is that I now see I now see things from a different perspective. My mentor, Rich Liffen, talks about a story about two cobblers. It's a parable about two cobblers who moved to a new country. And the cobbler, they're shoemakers, they'll go out and they've left their family behind to go to this country to explore the prospects of really building a shoemaking business there. And one of the shoemakers goes out there, the first, we'll say shoemaker one, goes out and he gets there and he notices that people there don't wear shoes. Like it's dusty roads. Like people are just walking barefoot. There's no one else that like it doesn't even seem like the idea of shoes is like on their mind at all. You know, they're just living their life, and it doesn't seem like it's even like meaningful at all. So he goes and sends a message back to his family and says, "Hey everyone, it's a bust here. Like don't worry about it here. No one here wears shoes. All right, so there's no business here. Let's don't worry about coming out." Shoemaker 2 goes out there and he sees the same thing. People, no one's wearing shoes. Doesn't even look like there's like the hint of shoes coming. And he sends a message back to his family. It's like, "Hey everyone, pack your bags as soon as possible. Come on over. No one's wearing shoes out here. What an opportunity." You know, and I look at that, I listen to that story. It puts a genuine smile on my face. And as I think about that story, I think about this moment right here. I think about this moment here, and I think about those past moments of where when I have thought and I've treated myself like Shoemaker One. Oh, okay, I guess no one's going to listen to a 20-minute live, so I guess I should like pare it down. Or as opposed to now when I'm like, oh, what if I had taken the Shoemaker 2 version, where it's like eventually people are gonna listen to this. Maybe this will come out as a podcast. Maybe this will come out on YouTube. And that's where my mindset was for a long time. I actually left that mindset. I don't know when I left it, but I left it about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and treated all these platforms differently as opposed to like being the expression. I think it was trying to be the expertion. Just being a place to share my expertise as opposed to being a place to just share the expression of what needed to be expressed in the moment. And as such, the Cobbler 2 elements, the opportunities started to fade away. And now I'm looking at this year. The lovely part about seeing all these different places where I denied myself and seeing myself now is that it's given me a chance now to take the person two the person two point of view, the person two approach to it all. And that person two, that Cobbler two, Shoemaker two approach is like there's opportunity. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be using recorded videos in the future. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be looking to audio and having longer form content and being like willing to do more with that. And now what I'm learning about is just to trust myself. I'm not a trend setter, but there's a part of me that understands where things are going to go. And it's time to start trusting that. And also build the resources to make sure that I can remain steadfast as things are on their way to the mainstream. So I'm going to come out here and I'll make my Facebook Live, not knowing when or how this will be adopted by the mainstream at some point, but it will, because they always do. It's like my job is to just make sure I keep showing up in the ways that are both authentic and honor the trust that I have in myself, honor my thoughts, so that I don't look back years later and say, oh, I really could have, or really should have. The things that I regret are the opportunities that I missed that I had. They were available for me that I didn't take. They're less the opportunities I didn't create for myself. So I think that's where I'll leave it. I'm going to spend some time now. I see Fari, good to see you. I see that you left a message here. June, you also left some things here. So let me just read that out and just bring you into the conversation in this way. June, you say that I'm creating a space that requires a lot of time and experience. What I can give by myself is my gift of writing. And so an imposter syndrome of some sort has been on my case. Can I really manage this? Am I qualified? Then last night, the idea to trust my writing, my gift to get started, the rest will follow, or at least things will be clearer. So trust in that right now. June, let me just say to you here. I've seen your writing. I want to acknowledge you here. I want to acknowledge you in the trusting of self here. I want to just acknowledge that feeling of imposter syndrome, right? And like leave a message in the comments here if you or anyone else has felt that feeling of like, can I really manage this? Like, I have this vision. I want to get it done. Maybe you've gotten started, and then like as you're seeing it, you're starting to see like, oh, I thought it was just a small hill, but it ends up being this massive mountain. Can I really manage this? Or am I qualified? I love like such poignant questions, June. Like, am I qualified? The way that shows up for me is like, who am I to do this? Like, who am I? And I imagine myself here, June. I'll I don't have one in front of me, but I used to write myself literally on post-it notes, by the way. I would take a post-it note and I would just give myself a qualification or a certification. And I would literally write, I hereby certify, I, Niyama Shang, am a podcaster or whatever it is. And I've done this for myself and for others. I'll do it sometimes with my clients. If we're in person, especially, I'll go and I'll give them something, or I'll find something online and I'll give them that qualification. Mainly because the answer is that we've always been qualified, and there's no external. There, yeah. That first and foremost starts from a decision on our end. There's other things we can do later on. It almost goes back with this. It goes back with the trust yourself, right? Right now in my mind, I'm thinking about my time as working as an actuary and taking the exams along the way, and there is this element here of like I know qualifications. Like I had to spend 8 years like working toward getting credentialed in a field. So I know about both credentials. I know about working in your spare time and putting your efforts towards something without necessarily knowing if it's going to pay off. I know what it's like to go for something and then like be utterly denied. I've failed every exam that I've taken, and I've also passed each of the exams that I've taken, so I get that the question of qualification is something that I've lived very, very deeply. And I think this whole element of trust yourself comes into play here, because one of the things that I found between the difference between the people who were really successful very quickly and the people who struggled with the exams like myself was whether or not you really. And sorry, there's another group. There's people who struggle with the exams and then just quit like really early in the process, as opposed to continuing onwards. And what I found is whether or not you looked at the exams as a viewpoint of okay, now of almost like how do I say, allowing you forward, almost like permissioning to you, saying okay, now this is you don't know this unless you can pass the exam, as opposed to the exams being a piece of recognition. Every time I pass the exam, it's like, oh, I know this, I got this. Let me just finish taking this exam. Give me this 2 hours to check the box and let the whole world know that I know this stuff. And I think that like that element of trust was just there. And I'm thinking about this right now when you're thinking about the gift of your writing. Like you have such a gift, and the thing that comes to mind is like really is being in this space and like playing with this trust here of allowing the qualification to be something that comes up afterwards, where it's you are a writer, do the craft, work on your work, put it out in the world, share your gift, let that happen, and then eventually the rest of the qualifications, the rest of the things will come and follow when that shows up. But I would be very excited to play this game of trusting yourself with you, to be in a space of for me it's getting back out there and just like creating more clients, getting my thought leadership out around being going from being a chameleon to being a bearded dragon, finding different ways to really own the space of belonging, and yet still own the differentiator for me when it comes to diversity and inclusion and belonging, like to know where I sit with it, and to trust that the way that I see it is meaningful and purposeful and will continue to add on. So I'm happy to play that game with you, June. I'm glad that you brought this into this space. Fari, I'm going back here, and I saw that you left a message that said, and June, let me know if there's anything else that evolved for you. Okay, just let me know. I'll respond to it. It says, Fari, the ones who need to hear you will hear you, darling. Well, firstly, thank you, Fari, and secondly, how true is that? The ones who need to hear you will hear you. I think like that's another part of the trust that like really just like is giving itself some space. It's like, and I see Fari afterwards, you said we all have imposter syndrome every single day. An imposter knocks on my door. Let's give space to that. Let's call that out. And I think that's one of the. I'm going to go back to when you said the ones who need to hear you will hear you, darling. I think that really, in the space of trust, has become more and more important and more apparent. So what's interesting is that it feels like I'm like remembering to trust myself. It's part of the reason why I just left the title of this, Trust Yourself, because some people aren't going to need to watch this and you're going to see that and they'll be like, oh yeah, just got to trust myself today. Like it's just that simple. Um, I used to approach these Facebook Lives and all the other things I did more from the standpoint of without it having to be, how do I say it, so strategically client focused to say, I need to make sure that someone hears this and they can apply it to their life tomorrow and all this other stuff. It's like, no, I used to come out here and make the message to make sure that the message was heard, to make sure the message was shared. And perhaps that message would all I knew was that I was showing up with a life changing intent every time I came on there. What changed was the time frame in which I felt the life changing event needed to happen. In the past, I knew it was possible to create a life changing event from this video right now that someone might watch 4 years from now and it will completely alter the trajectory of their lives. In the more recent past, I've been approaching things and saying, well, they need to listen to this today and they need to be able to apply it tomorrow and they need to be able to make like a 1% change. And honestly, the power of what I had to share, like started like going away. And this is something I made a commitment to myself that generally speaking, I am going to come on to Facebook Lives when I have something to share that shakes me up, that makes me afraid to come and share it with others, that puts me on the edge of my comfort zone, because that's what I want to be documented out in the world. I want to document the times where I was courageous and the things that came out as a result of that courage. And I lost trust in the fact that the ones who need to hear my message when they need to hear it they will hear it. And instead, I started spending way more time about how can I get the right message to the people and what's the right timing of it and what's the right placement of it. I was reminded the other week about Facebooks and all these social media platforms, how they all have algorithms in it. And I remember talking to my friend and saying, these algorithms, I like, what's going to get my content or my thing in front of the right person? They're going to miss it because the algorithm doesn't like me and all that. Literally, like I'm like, hey Augie, like you want to come out and hang out? It's like, no, I don't like you. Like, as if that was the case, right? You specifically, you person, I like everyone else I like, but not you. And my friend said something that just like blew my mind. He's like, well, for me, I look at the Facebook algorithm, I look at all these algorithms as like a member of my team. And I'm going to trust that they have way more data on any individual person than I do. They know like what their habits are, what they want to watch, and they do all this stuff and they have a lot of data and they have a lot of like computational power and they also have a lot of coding to get the right message to the right person at the right time. It's like my job is just to keep giving that algorithm stuff to know so that it knows when to send it and when to share it. And it blew my mind. It blew my mind because it took out, like, I didn't realize it, but at that point I had started taking on like trying to be incredibly prescriptive of saying, Fari needs to hear this message at this time. June needs to hear this at this time. Kim, I see you on this here, so I'm gonna love to give you a shout out. Kim needs to hear this message at this time. Maybe you're here to hear it, so hi. It was this idea of trying to just be really prescriptive with it and say like, and almost like guess what people needed when they needed it. And Fari, to your point, like people will hear the message when it's right for them. This message, there are some people who are hearing this live right now and are experiencing it, and you're going through whatever you're going through as you're experiencing this conversation. This is the time that was meant for you. You might come back to this later on, right before you go to a message, and just hear like that very beginning, that very first story, and be like, oh yeah, let me take that and do something with it. Or the cobbler story, like we're just gonna leave this for it to be the right message for the right person at the right time, whenever that time needs to be. And I'm glad that you're here and we can be here in person to be playing around here and just letting things kind of evolve. I think I'm going to be bringing this conversation to a close for now. There's some other things I want to do and keep building with this knowledge of trusting myself. I'm like, oh, there's some things to get into. There are some things to create. There are some people to go and serve. Like there is some money to bring into so I can fund the actual level of my vision here. So I'm gonna go off and do that. And I do that with a space of trust in myself and also trust in you. So let me close out here with just some of the other comments that came in here. June, I want to thank you for being a part of this conversation, June. You said here in response to what I'd said some things earlier about like us talking and really being in the space of trusting together. And you said, awesome, thank you. Start with the writing and the other qualifications will come. The energy I felt last night confirms that. Big old thumbs up, you know? Thank you, June. I'm glad you're part of that. And you also love the posted idea. And the posted idea being that you give yourself your own certification. You give yourself the own qualification, and you write whatever you need to. Make it and it could be as simple and as small as a post-it, or it can be as elaborate as a diploma or whatever it is that you want to create for yourself. But if you need to see something that makes you feel that you are qualified, like just take care, do whatever you need to make that come to life. And I love that we're playing with this. And then Fari, I see you here. We're talking here. I was sharing back some things, and you agree with that, with the so true. So true. This has been an absolute pleasure. It's been a long time coming to just come out here and be with each of you here. I'm enjoying this here. I haven't done a Facebook Live like this. I don't know when I did a Facebook Live like this, where we're really just in conversation. I'll look to be doing more of these as we go along, because I do have fun with this here, and I imagine each of you. I'm almost like envisioning a circle table around me, and I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm reading what you're writing, and I'm sharing here, and I'm seeing some of you come in. You'll sit down for a little bit. Other times you'll go off and you'll stay for the whole conversation. But just know that like I appreciate you, I see you, and I have one thing that I'm going to invite you to do, which is just to trust yourself. Trust yourself. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Leave some more comments. We'll keep up the conversation in here, and then we'll continue on from there. Bye.
It's the World Joy Movement.
Yeah. What was your greatest insight from this conversation? And if you want to come and be a part of a conversation like this live, it's really simple. Just go to beworldjoy.com and come introduce yourself, and let's take the conversation to the next level, because you're there now.
All right, let's play.